Nessa serie de preguntas dicen, duendes, yo quiero comunicar con tu en un día cuando tu oído, tu pregunta, ellos les gustan las sorpresas.
¿Qué?
Sorpresas.
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 Pizza. Abuelo. A las buenas cosas que les gusta más. El loro, ¿verdad?
¿Horno?
Mira, abuelo. La pizza. Ese es el mejor. Y el suyo más. Huele con salchichón en el pelo más pequeñito. Huele con salchichón en el pelo. Huele.
Well, there's a little window into my day. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Bruce McDonald, and this is the Telemanker Review. It's 9:02 p.m., and it's the 13th of November, 2024. There's a lot of rain in Costa Rica right now. Oh, by the way, I figured out how to use my iPhone camera on Windows 11. I just had to download an app on the phone and then a corollary application on the desktop. You don't really need to buy cameras anymore. Your phone camera, whether it be an Android or an iPhone, is all you need. And these cameras are much better. I mean, you can just see the difference in the quality of picture. It's like when I used to do the podcast with this camera up here with the Mac Mini, which is now in the back. The second Starlink setup arrives tomorrow, so I'll be able to podcast from the back or the front. There's about 30 meters between the two houses and a little concrete pathway. Well, before I really get into it, I had a very interesting day today, and this is sort of indicative, okay? This kind of stuff happens to me a lot. I mean, a lot, but not daily, but a lot compared to a normal person, okay? So the kids were at the back, and they were playing in the center room, and there was a little dude they play with. Here it is. So you saw how young the kids are, right? I mean, the smallest there, Isabella, is just shy of 3 years, and then the twins are, I think, 11. And then everything in between, pretty much. Tiago is about 6, and Mateo is about 8 or 9, and then Sophie is 8 or 9 as well. And so in that group there was a niece, a nephew, and then 4 grandchildren. And it's just one of those places in the world where the nieces and nephews can be older than the grandchildren. In Canada, I'd only ever seen that on native reserves. But when you get over to this part of the world, it's just different. Okay? So they're here all week because school's been canceled. And they love it up here. And my wife's in 7th heaven. But something happened today. So this is a picture my wife took. This is a little toy they have. It's about the size of your palm. And they were in the center bedroom in the back. And the bedroom, they're big. Like, they have sofas, desks, computer chairs, computers set up, queen-size beds, and then still room to run around and play. I mean, the rooms back there are about 350 square feet. They're big rooms. And I just love them. I love the whole Earth Bag complex, right? Concept. I just love it. And they all came out onto the balcony for something, and the door closed behind them, and it locked. There's a bolt lock, and my wife had to get like a knife and undo it. And my wife was a little bit not cross with them, but she didn't believe them at first. She thought one of the kids was in the room, because you can only lock it from the inside, hiding under the bed or something. But she looked around, and she said all the kids are there. Impossible to lock the door from the outside. It's literally impossible. I won't go into the engineering of it, but so got the door open, and that little dude there, that little doll, which is plastic dude, I think he's like a Smurf or something, Papa Smurf or something. But when the kids came out of the room, he was on the bed, and then he had moved over to the sofa. So it's just another little paranormal experience up here. You know, the kids, it was probably the duende, the elves, having fun with the kids. They like to fool around with kids. That's part of the Costa Rican folklore. Now, you got to understand that for most of the people who've moved to the city in Costa Rica, who work in offices and live a life very similar to a North American, these things I'm saying are as ridiculous to them as they may be to the ears of some of you people listening to me. But they're 100% real, okay? I've been having supernatural experiences all my life. Since 18 years, well, even my first UFO sighting was about 8 years old with my brother. And it's not something that happened, and I never provoke them. I never ritualistically or in any way, shape, or form look for the paranormal. It just overlaps in my life in a very, very natural way. And I've developed an ability to work with it, to communicate with it. And generally what you do, even if you can't see what these things are, you generally just say, hey, take it easy. You know, that was a bit funny for me and my wife, but the kids are a bit afraid. They won't sleep in that center room now, so they've taken over the master bedroom where my wife and I sleep, and we have to sleep in the center room now because they're a little freaked out. But that's what, if you go back and you listen to the conversation, when I'm rolling the pizza dough, you'll hear the word duende, which means gnome or goblin in Spanish. And that's what we're talking about, is what happened today. So, there you go. Tonight I wanted to talk about a number of things. I wanted to talk about a little bit more about the election, what it means. And how I feel about it. And how I feel about the position and prominence that the Jewish agenda is taking in the Trump administration. And after thinking about it for most of the day and allowing my heart to resonate on it, I've decided that I'm completely okay with it. A lot of people aren't. It's a lot of people are very upset about the Marco Rubio appointment to Secretary of State. Tulsi Gabbard got a position. Matt Gaetz got a position, Attorney General. So there's some really good appointments in the administration. But this, I, like anybody else, find it a little bit alarming when a representative of the U.S. federal government appointed to the United Nations refers to the Jews as the chosen people, God's chosen people. And it is offensive, okay? It's extremely offensive, and you have every right to be offended. But my counsel, if it means anything to you, and if it doesn't, just throw it away like a candy wrapper. I'm not offended, right? just let it slide. This is their moment. Okay? They're going to get their temple. They're ultimately going to wreak tremendous havoc in the world, but it's all written. It's all preordained. And the Creator, God, has his reasons for doing these things. I don't quite understand them. I don't claim to understand them. I don't think anybody can understand the reasons of God. You can understand aspects of the creation. You can see your past lives. You can interact with non-physical beings on the fourth dimension, as I did today. You can play around in this cosmic playground. But when it comes to God, you just have to accept it. Like the way things happen on the earth, you just have to accept it. It's just the way things are going to go down. And fighting with it is just going to create a world of frustration. Ultimately, of course, this is not a good thing for the Jews. If they had any sense, they would be quiet, make their money, quietly live diaspora lives, French Jews, British Jews, American Jews, and not make a big deal out of themselves. But they can't do that. It's just not in their nature. And they're going to manifest this destiny, which is a secret society destiny. I do not believe the Apocryphon of John, what we call the Book of Revelation, is a legitimate piece of scripture. I'll be very frank about that. I think it's complete horseshit. I think it was written specifically as a ritualistic passage from Pisces to Aquarius, which itself fits into some even larger cycles that are beyond the lens of astrology. Because astrology can really only capture the astral, which basically represents our solar system. Okay? And this sort of leads me into what I'm talking about tonight, and that is just what we're going through. Okay? And we're literally going into and we're going to go through the fourth dimension as a human race. And this is why you need to understand what's going on. I don't want to fight with people who listen to my podcast. For those of you who follow the comments, you'll see that there's another little bit of a situation here. I've inflamed a biblical literalist. I don't know why they even watch my podcast, to be honest. If they just put their prejudice and their dogma aside, they might learn something, but this is really the problem. Okay? You want to know what the problem with the world is? It's spiritual chauvinism. It's the belief that you have the right to say that the culture, beliefs, and spiritual disposition and the entities and principalities and gods, because there are many gods that another people work with, are illegitimate, offensive, and need to be destroyed. And this is the consciousness we're dealing with now with the third temple. And I can tell you how the story ends. It ends with the destruction of all people who think this way, because it's not what the earth was created for. This is not a victory for the Jews. It's not a victory for evangelical Christians who think that the Jews are God's chosen people and who think that prophecy is something special, and it isn't. This is really the beginning of their funeral procession. Some people might find this offensive. Okay? The Bible is one book among many. I've talked about many on my show, many that have affected me deeply. I've confessed that the Gospels have affected me deeply, but that carries no sway with these Christians. It's their way or fuck you. So my response to anybody that thinks that way is fuck you. And I know that the Creator's on my side. And that's all there is to it. Okay? And that goes for the Jews too. You've managed through the magic of money, manipulation, mass murder, secret genocides, surreptitious secret societies to get this far, and you're going to get your temple. I've said it before on the Talamanca Review, and I'll say it again. You're going to regret it. Because that's the moment that your bill comes due. Because what you've made your deal with is going to fulfill. It's going to realize what you asked for. It's going to deliver it. You're in a contract with an invisible entity. I'll tell you right now, it's not God. Make what you will of that. It doesn't really bother me. You can think I'm a dumb goy, stupid fucking Gentile, cattle, whatever derogatory term you apply to non-Jews. Or, if you had any sense at all, you'd hear my words as a Gentile prophet. Somebody speaking to you and telling you what the prophets used to tell your people. You're on a bad path, and if you keep doing this, this is going to happen. Nothing can turn you away now, though. Nothing. You're going to build your temple, and you're going to destroy your people. And you're going to take a lot of other people with you. That's okay. Life comes and goes on this planet. If you watch the near-death experiences enough, you'll find nobody wants to come back. They all have to be forced to come back. That's how beautiful it is on the other side. Okay? You could have a mother who just had twins. They're 6 months old. They're the love of her life. She has a near-death experience, even knowing she has these 2 newborn twins who need her as a mother. She doesn't want to come back. That's how beautiful the other side is. So living is the hard part. Living well is even harder. Living in accord with spiritual law is even harder. But if you can get into the rhythm, like surfing, and catch the wave, being alive and living in the divine is a magical experience. I myself can sometimes do it. It's very difficult to stay up on the wave, though. Something seems to knock you off all the time. But paddling back out and waiting for the next big crest is always fun, too. And I think that the Creator likes it when we don't give up, that we just keep trying and trying and trying to get ourselves fixed in God consciousness and to live there. But the trying is the important thing. Okay? So it seems with the election of Trump that we're going to live this fucking biblical nightmare. And it's all being man-made. It's got nothing to do with God. Okay? Now I want to say something else, because I'm curious about the assassination attempt, the one that took place in, I forget the name of the place. Was it Buckley or something like that, Pennsylvania? The first one where he got clipped on the ear. I watched a Vice documentary on it, about 45 minutes, quite detailed, and they dealt with some of the best snipers. They actually spoke to the best sniper in the world, who, by the way, is a Canadian. And the longest kill shot ever recorded from a 50 cal rifle was a Canadian sniper. And that is now the Canadian snipers in a special forces team called J2F are through the roof. They're the best in the world, the best snipers in the world. And they interviewed him, and man, it's really amazing. I mean, he really did get hit with that bullet in the ear. Was it a ritual? Yes. But look, we're dealing with people that are operating multidimensionally, third and fourth dimension. So a bullet was really fired. Trump should be dead. He isn't. But don't automatically assume God saved him. There are do you know how many dimensions there are between our physical existence and what we could legitimately call a spiritual region? There's 4 major dimensions, and each one of those dimensions has multiple subdimensions and frequencies. Okay? What we're witnessing is the last hurrah of fourth dimensional magic, because the human race is going to causal consciousness, where we're going to live above the fourth dimension, meaning that we're while in our bodies. And what that means is we're not going to have to worry about anything spooky anymore. And the fourth dimension is going to be cleaned out. We're going to be the ones that clean it out. And that means all the trapped souls in there. That's where what you would call purgatory is. Now, I'm not trying to be offensive when I say these things. I really don't want to offend anybody. But when you're dealing with opaque Christians, inflexible, dogmatic Christians or Jews, there's really nothing else to do but be offensive. Because when you're speaking to people, you have to speak their language or they don't understand you. And belligerent, offensive language is the language of this group of people, this Judeo-Christian culture that wants to build the temple. And I imagine that there's an Islamic component to it as well, that want to see it done. It's no accident that all of the prophecies in Christianity and Islam are triggered by the temple. Why do you think that is? Because the bedrock of the teachings are the Jews. Therefore, they control it all. Right? And remember, it's not prophecy, it's a plan. If we were really and truly being plagued by war, famine, pestilence, and disease, well, I can assure you the real creator wouldn't need Moderna and Pfizer and AstraZeneca to bring the disease to us. The creator is more than capable of creating a disease to wipe out vast portions of humanity. The Apocryphon of John, the book of Revelation, is a depopulation agenda. And that depopulation takes place right at the transition between Pisces and Aquarius. That's all it is. Okay? And woe be unto them who celebrate this time, thinking that their God has come, and take joy in the death of others. Woe be unto you, to use your own language. That is a shameful state of mind. That is a shameful spiritual disposition. But that's all we've really come to expect from this Jewish culture now, is a shameful disposition. That piece of shit New York rabbi Shmuley literally cannot find himself on X without being an absolute asshole and literally humiliating himself and his culture. I don't know if you've seen any of these videos going around of him, getting into people's faces like this far away, the spittle coming out of his mouth, the finger a millimeter from their face. You're an anti-Semite, like screaming like Alan Dershowitz in a law case or on Piers Morgan or something. These are a spiritually sick people, and part of their remedy is building their temple. And so I'm for it because I'm all in favor of the remedy. Now, I've been predicting this for a long time, and there's very few podcasters who've been talking about this. And I've had more than a few people laugh in my face, including the so-called great galactic historian Andrew Bartzis. Not so fucking funny now, is it? So what is the value of being a psychic if you can't even see an event like this in the timeline? It's ridiculous. This other guy on the other side of the mountain, Shunyamurti, some of you have heard of him. He's literally on the other side of the Talamanca Mountains. There's like 100 kilometers, not 100. I don't know how. They say you could walk it in like 4 or 5 days. I don't know what that would be in the jungle. Maybe 30, 40 kilometers. But he opened up an ashram over there. Alleges to be an enlightened being. The dollar vigilante guy likes him quite a bit. And so do other people. He's done a few videos on this too on his YouTube channel. The temple is a red herring. Again, how can so many people be getting this wrong? Right? How can so many people be getting this wrong? And if you get something this eventful wrong, why should we trust anything else you say? right? Literally, why should we trust anything else you say? Okay? So tonight I'm going to try and explain to you a little bit more about what the fourth dimension is, okay? What we call the astral plane. When you're talking to somebody who's never been there, and most people have never been there, that they can remember, I promise you everybody's been there. You're taken in dreams. And maybe you don't remember the dreams, but everybody's been to the astral plane, okay? It's not an either or place. And what I mean by that is it's not angels or extraterrestrials. It's both. They're both there. Do you understand? Think of it like a life space where things exist at a certain frequency, and in that life space, they have the same form. So you would basically look the same way you do now when you go to the astral. Many people, when they die, one of the first things they do after a little bit of time there, like a year or so, if you can contact them, the first thing you notice is they'll go back to when they felt most comfortable in the last body they lived in. So the last time I saw my father, he looked about 19 years old. He died at 87, and he was all beaten up because he just led a beat himself up lifetime, right? He was an alcoholic. He chain smoked 3-4 packs of filterless cigarettes a day till his mid-40s. And the only reason he quit is he got pleurisy of the lungs. And if you don't know that disease, your lungs literally fill up with liquid. He almost died, so he had to quit. So he crawled on to 87 just because of the genetics. You know, a normal human being would have died between 55 and 65, what he put his body through. But when I saw him, he was 19. His face was just glowing. His skin was perfect. There was light in his eyes, and he was happy. And what that means is that he's processed everything from this last life he lived. And he'll stay there in that form for a while and then come and take another body. And that body will have certain physical similarities to the astral body he's in now. It's very interesting the way the whole thing works. Now, on that astral plane, the ETs are there, like extraterrestrials and people coming from off the planet. And so the astral is associated with the planet. So if you are born and you live a life here and you die here, and you have what we call a low heaven rest period between incarnations, you're going to be on the astral plane, and that astral plane is associated to this world. Okay? Now, if you've built up a little mobility, you're going to be able to go out into the solar system, out into the galaxy. But if you're going to do that when you die, you'll be doing it before you die in meditation or dreams. Okay? So the remote viewer people, when they pass, they'll be able to go to the ends of the universe and everything. Okay? And that's why it's important to get into these things and study them a bit and learn these things and increase yourself while you're in the body, because it massively, it's like, think of it like a passport in your afterlife. Okay? If you don't do any of this work to expand your consciousness, if you don't do the prayer or the meditation, then you're not going to have this mobility when you pass. Okay? And that might not be a bad thing, because we don't have a whole lot of mobility when we're physically alive. You know, you live in one place. I go to the grocery store, I get in my car, I walk into the jungle sometimes. But for the most part, I'm in one space all the time. And when you go to the astral, because there's no physical restrictions like respiration, like stamina, you know, because the energetics of a physical body doesn't exist in the astral. Okay? It's a different energetics. When you get the hang of being there, you can jump 30, 40 feet in the air. You can teach yourself to fly. You can do all these things. And when you're there in the astral on Earth, you'll see all the ships because they're here now on the astral, but they're cloaked. Okay? Just like the kids in the back couldn't see the duende, the goblins. Okay? But they were there. And they were able to do physical things from the fourth dimension, like move a doll from a bed, move it 10 feet over to a sofa, and shut a door and latch the door shut. Okay? But they're not physical. We can't see them. I hope this is clear. Okay? So when you're on the astral, you see the ships. And there's nobody on the astral plane does not believe in extraterrestrials. Nobody on the astral plane does not believe in angels. Nobody on the astral plane, if they end up in the bad vibration part of the astral, does not believe in demons. Okay? And if you end up in the bad vibration part of the astral, you'll see the negative extraterrestrials. If you end up in the good vibration part of the astral, you'll see the positive extraterrestrials. You'll see the Pleiadians. You'll see the Nordics. You'll see all of this stuff. What determines it? It's not whether you declare some Jewish carpenter your savior. I'll tell you that much. It's how you live, how you treat others, and the degree to which you can get over yourself. Okay? And remember my definition of insanity, because it's the best definition you're ever going to hear. Insanity is when all you can see is yourself. Okay? And insane people do not go to good places when they die. Okay? So, this is in many ways the spiritual mission of the Jews, whether they realize it or not. Okay? It's to take the human race through the fourth dimension. And that's what the temple's going to do. Now, let me take a moment to give you a disclaimer. This is all just my opinion. Okay? Take it or leave it. This is one guy's opinion. I'm speaking intuitively, I'm speaking irrationally, I'm speaking from spiritual insight, which is completely irrational from the perspective of physics, biology, chemistry, and everything that we call certifiable information in the 21st century. But let me ask you this. Where has that certifiable information and the institutions it has created led you? Has it led you to a good place? Well, not if you're about to be sacrificed. It hasn't led you to a good place at all. One of the things that is going to leave the world in the next era we're going into is this religious chauvinism, where an ignorant person who's read a little bit of the Bible and gone to some congregation can tell another person that they're wrong and they really don't know. That's not going to be tolerated on the planet anymore. I'm amazed actually it's been tolerated this long. And in many ways, what's coming is a justifiable recompense for what's been done. Because the chauvinism of the Abrahamic religion, and it's not just the Christians, the Jews are going to try and scapegoat the Christians, but it's been Jewish planned, Jewish financed, and now we've got Jews saying, look at what these horrible Christians did with their colonization, displacing all of these people. Columbus was a Jew. What the fuck are you talking about? Okay? They've been along every step of the ride. Okay? But they're going to try and get out of it now. Like the weasel who rats out in the police interrogation and rats everybody else to get their own freedom. That's what they're going to try to do in the spiritual process. The other thing they're going to try to do is scapegoat the Christians. Okay? But it's not going to work. It's already starting to not work. But the one thing I can promise you is that temple is going to be built, and that temple is going to be a magical construct we haven't seen on the planet in a long, long time. I mean, the Vatican is a magical construct. If you took the time to read the Galactic Historian, you know that the obelisks, the one in Washington, the one in England, in the City of London, and the one in Rome at the Vatican, those were all brought over brick by brick from Egypt. Those are true magical obelisks. But the Temple of Solomon will be the first magical structure that's been built on the planet in thousands of years. And it will recaptivate and reawaken the imagination and the buried memory of all of this stuff, which will be a very positive thing, which I don't think is the intent of the rabbis. But, you know, you can't get everything your way, okay? So this is the future, and this is what's happening, and it's going to be coming, and nothing can stop it. I think that's enough for tonight. I don't feel I need to do 50 minutes every night or 55 minutes. I just need to get something out of me, expressed clearly, and then boom, the podcast is